How to protect your investments during a recession. This is going to be a hard one for some of you guys to hear, so pay attention. Okay, this one, seriously, guys, it's a difficult one, and you're going to want to pay attention to it. Honestly, I'm just going to shoot you straight on this, so let's get going. Look, you guys, I've been investing in real estate for a long time, and I've gone through that recession back in 2008. Hit me like a ton of bricks. Let me tell you how I weathered the storm, my wins, my losses, and how I got through it. You can learn from it too. So during the last recession, what happened is a lot of people lost their properties. We had mortgage modifications. And that was not on investment properties, which is primarily what we're talking about right now. They wouldn't modify an investment property. Basically, either lost it or lost it, right? Or you were in it right and you got to maintain and keep it. So a lot of people, were buying properties at the height and banking on all those appreciations and all the rent appreciations and all those things. And what happened was when everything hit, as you're buying properties cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, what happens? Rents go down lower and lower and lower. That happened to me as well. I didn't get to keep a lot of them, but I did let quite a few go. And I learned a lot of lessons from that. And this time I've hedged against all of that by buying right. Now, here's the thing. Buying right and paying down debt. Let me explain what I'm talking about. Right now, I'm buying more real estate than I've ever bought before. But also I'm kind of hedging that. Let me talk about it a little bit. So if you just buy and you're getting into a property at retail and you're putting as little down as possible, if we have those bumps down, odds are you may hit, a rough patch. And that just is what it is. You may have to let that property go. I hope that's not the case. But what you want to do is, and one thing I've done is I've put all of my profits on a monthly basis on either acquiring new real estate or paying debt down. So you often hear me talk about sacrifice, right? Sacrifice in what we do. So maybe I can't go out and buy the most recent whatever car I want or whatever. I could, but instead I sacrifice and I pay down the debt to make sure that if something happens, I could weather the storm. Does that make sense? So your profits on a monthly basis, if you're rolling those and you keep those going, you either buy an additional asset, putting down payment, or if you have an asset and you want to pay down the debt on it, you can do that as well. Hope that makes sense. But this is something that I've had to learn the hard way. And we learned it by, I was over leveraged on a handful of properties back in the day. And unfortunately, what happened is people stopped making rent payments to me, which made my mortgage as a shortfall, right? So I wasn't able to make all those payments on the shortfalls. So yeah, humbling experience, absolutely. Did I learn something from it? Absolutely. Am I grateful for it? Absolutely. I learned something, and I learned not to carry so much high debt around. So I try to stay very low as far as LTV or loan to value, making it to where if something happens, I could weather that storm again. So what's that mean if you're an investor now? Well, maybe when you buy fix and do fix and flips, maybe you're doing the fix and flips and then putting that profit towards a down payment on the next project of more of like a buy and hold, right? It's what a lot of people don't do. They go and they spend that money. They, maybe invested in something a little, justify treating yourself, which, hey, whatever floats your boat, go and do. I'm just telling you how I plan on weathering the storm this time, and that is by paying down my debt or mortgages that I have on these properties to get them basically non-existent, so if something does happen, I could weather the storm that much easier. Here's another way for you to do it. This is called the debt equity blend. This is a beautiful thing that I learned from a guy named Mitch. So what Mitch does is he will have partners that will bring in the equity portion. What's that mean? Like, let's just say you're getting an 80% loan versus a 20% down payment, right? So if they bring the down payment on the deal, he'll bring the debt, right? Which is typically private money, things like that. And then that way, if something happens in the market, you could adjust those numbers and not necessarily have this person paid off right away just in case something happens, right? You're not so leveraged that you have to give it up. Now, does that mean your money's parked for a minute? Yes. Does that mean that they're going to lose it? Not necessarily. In fact, more likely than not, when we go through a downturn, on average, that downturn's 19% on average. That being said, if that happens, that means that person's money's parked for a minute. Maybe they don't get it back right away, but what happens on the pendulum? It shifts, and it will go back the other way, and that appreciation will happen again. Especially right now, we're dealing with appreciation. Hyperinflation is what it's called. So, on some of these rentals, maybe if you could time the market right and you exit correctly, if we do get into hyperinflation, you could exit some of these and actually pay off some of those rentals a lot easier. Food for thought. So what are we talking about? Trying not to be over leveraged, making sure you're minimizing the risk, making sure that you have solid tenants with solid jobs, that you've done your job and work up front by getting those good tenants that are in there. So with a solid tenant, what do we look for? We look for stability and ability to pay. Are they stable on their job and have they been there a long time? Are they able to make the payments on a monthly basis? Meaning, is their debt to income ratio in line? These are the things you want to look at. Is their job a high risk job that's going to be gone as soon as the market tanks? I'm not saying the market's going to tank, so don't freak out. But I'm saying if there's an adjustment in the market, are they disposable? Is that job gone? So something to think about. Nursing, things like that, those are great jobs. Anyways, stability and ability to pay. I always think of that. When I was at was vice president of Washington Mutual and ran states for them and lending, I would always just look, does this person have the stability and ability to pay? If the answer is yes, let's find a way to make a deal for them. If you're liking this, do me a favor, click on the subscribe button below, follow us, and let us bring great content like this to you daily. During the last downturn, another way that I ended up monetizing the issue or kind of coming out the other side beautifully was I ended up doing vacation rentals at that time. I also looked at renting out rooms of a house, and or you could look at, like, if you're buying commercial real estate, to do the executive suite model. That's exactly how I got into commercial real estate, was in the recession, bottom of the market. I ended up doing executive suites. So instead of renting out the entire space or building, I rented out offices. Not only did I rent it out really, really fast, like within 30 to 45 days, a building that sat vacant for a long time, but I also got a premium for the building. Why? Because I made it affordable by just renting out a single office. Now they're not responsible for the entire office. And guess what else happens? I'm not chasing people if they're not successful at their space. I often have a waiting list for people that could move into that space if something does happen. It doesn't happen very often, but I'm not trying to chase somebody if their business failed. It actually adds insult to injury, I think. So I just focus on the positive, and that is finding that other tenant or calling the tenant that was looking most recently and letting them know, hey, there's an opportunity in XYZ building. You could get in for X, and it doesn't take very many phone calls or very many marketing pushes on Craigslist to make that happen. Here's another thing that you're going to have to evaluate. I don't know if you've ever heard of this, and let's see if I can make it even make sense. Let's say there's 10 deer in the forest, but only enough food for 7. I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but do you know actually how many of them actually survive? None. None of them do, right? Because there's not enough food, they all end up starving. But if there's 7, they end up surviving. So what does that mean in this whole thing? I don't know. I just wanted to say that. I've been wanting to say it. Okay, I'm kidding. I do have something to say about it. Let's say you have 10 properties and some of them just aren't cash flowing correctly. You may want to cut bait on those to let the other 7 survive during a recession if you're not in them right. That's all I'm saying. So, and typically there's a good forecast of things to come when this all happens. It's not like people may think, oh my gosh, it was just all of a sudden. It wasn't all of a sudden. You'll start to see the projection of properties starting to slide, and you'll know like it's happening. Also going to some of these REIA meetups. It's something that you want to do. You want to stay in front of what's happening. Here's what happens also. The herd, if you will, does get thinner, and a lot of people choose not to invest anymore. This is the time that you get into the market and double down. This is the time where you can make so much more money. Think about those houses I was talking about in the other episode where I was buying houses for $4,000, $5,000, $6,000. You know what they're worth now? Over $100,000 for those same houses. I don't know what kind of return that is, but heck, it's a big return. More importantly, the cash flow that those things are spitting out. But it's typically what I ask myself during the recession time or during a time like that is find what everybody's doing and do the exact opposite. If everybody's running from that opportunity, I often think, where's the opportunity in this? Because I virtually have no competition. So that blind spot that I talked about before, what is the blind spot? What's the opportunity and how could I capitalize on it? If you've liked this content, I think you're gonna love my book, Truth or Comfort. In fact, if you've seen The Matrix recently, their advertising, they love it so much, they've copied my book. They have, don't believe me? Go look at The Matrix. I don't know what else to tell you. All right, I don't know if they've copied me, but it sure looks similar. I don't wanna insinuate, but I don't know. You look at it, you tell me what you think. That being said, I'm gonna give you the book for free, Truth or Comfort. All you have to do is click on the link below and it's yours. Thank you for watching.